Coming up on today's episode of the Salesman Podcast.
As far as giving value to others in order to guilt them to do business with you, first of all, I don't want anyone to do that.
Hello Sales Nation, I'm Will Barron, host of the Salesman Podcast, and welcome to today's episode. On today's show we have Bob Burg, author of the business classic, The Go-Giver, which you can find on Amazon, you can find everywhere. It's a huge bestseller. And that is what we're diving into today. Whether salespeople can have better results by giving up front. By giving more, can you get more in the long run? Bob and I go back and forth over a few points. And it was an interesting discussion because he didn't agree with some of what I alluded to. And so as I said, we went back and forth over it. So it should be interesting listening for you guys. You can find out more about Bob over at burg.com. And with that all said, let's jump into today's episode. Hi, Bob, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Hey, Will, thank you. Great to be with you again.
You're more than welcome, sir. I'm excited to have you on. And today I want to start the show by, of course, we're going to talk about the Go-Giver. And I want to start the show and I want to frame the Go-Giver before we get too deep into it in the context of sales and the B2B sales professional right now. Because I think there's a lot to go at here and I'm intrigued, and there's probably lots of rabbit holes that we'll end up going down versus the questions I've got here in front of me. But it seems obvious for anyone who hasn't read the book, it seems like common sense that if you give value up front to somebody and you continue to do this, you'll get to a point where you're almost inadvertently guilting them into giving back at some point because you've given so much without want for anything back in the front phase of the conversation and the business and the networking and everything else that we're doing.
We don't want that though, Will. We don't want.
I know. Let me just jump in here. Let me because I'm going. I want to just frame up the whole conversation and the whole of the sales industry along that front, because this seems like common sense. It seems like something that anyone who has any sales training would be able to do. Now, if that's common sense, and there's other angles on it which will go down, why is it that the stereotype of the salesperson is the complete opposite of that? The stereotype of the salesperson is this slimy used car salesperson who's sucking value rather than trying to give it.
Well, okay. So I think those are two different things there, and they're both great to look at. First, as far as giving value to others in order to guilt them to do business with you, first of all, I don't want anyone to do that. I certainly don't want anyone to do business with me because they have a sense of obligation. I want them to do business with me because they believe doing so is going to bring them more value than not doing so. And I believe that in the relatively free marketplace, which both of our countries operate in, the only reason someone is going to do business, let's put it this way, and I often say this when I speak at sales conferences, no one's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you have a great product or service that can help them and their company. They're going to buy from you only because they believe they are better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason they should buy from you. If they buy from you out of guilt, it's the wrong reason, and it's not a sustainable reason. You can't do business that way for the long haul, okay? But the question, why do people still think of sales as that kind of, as you were talking, the kind of yucky sort of thing? Well, it's because of the way most people have, first of all, seen the wrong kind of salespeople operate. And let's face it, we tend to be more affected by the negative things than the positive things, because I guarantee you that everyone listening to this, watching this, they have salespeople who they buy from, who they love. They certainly know, like, and trust those people, or they probably wouldn't buy from them. Yet, we see on TV and we see in the movies and we see, right, that the salesperson's the, fast-talking, slick-walking sales guy type who kind of glad hands and backhands it, right, and slaps hands and shakes hands and sticks a business card into everybody's face and says, hey, give me a call, I'll cut you a deal, right? Well, that's that philosophy that selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need, right? That's not selling. In fact, that's being a con artist, is what that is. Selling properly defined is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, desires, and helping them to get it. And that's whether it's business to consumer or, of course, business to business, as many of your listeners and viewers operate in. It's still people doing business with people, right? As I always say, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And it's only when they believe in you and they trust you because they know your focus is on pleasing them, bringing value to them. That's when they're going to do business with you, and that's when you're going to receive money. This is why John David Mann, my awesome co-author of The Go-Giver, he and I often say that money is an echo of value, right? It's the thunder to value's lightning, which means the focus must be on them, on bringing them value. The money you receive is simply a very natural and direct result of the value you provide. That's selling.
And I don't want to just gloss over this, and we'll move on from this in a second, but the stereotype of the salesperson is clearly there because selling like that at some point, if not now, worked. So salespeople did that. So the stereotype was formed. Clearly, that's not the case now. It's the best way to describe it, I think, is yucky and icky. When you get approached by that, you're revolted and you want to move away from it. So clearly, we don't talk about any tactics like that other people do. We don't have that on the show because it's not.
It's harder to get away with it these days than it used to be.
I see.
So not that people still don't. There are still scam artists out there. There were scam artists before. There are now. And many people use the internet to do their scams now. I mean, there's all sorts of, but as a salesperson who wants a sustainable, healthy, profitable business that they feel good about, that they serve others and they make a lot of money doing it, you cannot be dishonest. You cannot be scammy. You cannot be that stereotypical person. There's too many ways now for people to be able to report you to others, right? My friend Joe Calloway, author of Magnetic and author of many great books on sales and business, says the greatest compliment you can that you can have is someone says, "Yeah, I checked you out on the internet, and you were great." You know what I'm saying? It's like ask the internet. When a person says, "I asked the internet about you," and it came out back great, because it will be there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good, and I think that kind of levels out the playing field a little bit of the sales market, and for businesses in general, I think it's a really positive thing. And we're going to come back to this. You've mentioned it a few times now, this word sustainable. We'll come back to that later in the show. But it seems that we've gone from these the con artist, as you want to describe it, to giving value to obligate people. We'll move on.
Not to obligate, though.
No, I know. Bob, it's under control. We've gone from the con artist to giving value to obligate to then perhaps the go-giver model is what we'd focus on now and what we'd push. And clearly, you're having great success with that model. Why is it bad to? It's understandable that we don't want to con people. That makes total sense, and you wouldn't want to be conned yourself. Why is it bad to give loads of value up front to make someone feel obligated to do business with you? Because it seems like there's a lot of upside for it, and it doesn't seem as quite as weird and quite as manipulative, even though there is manipulation in there. Why is that such a bad approach?
Well, obligation and guilt isn't a great reason for anything. That's manipulation. That's not persuasion. That's not influence. It's manipulation. If someone's doing business with you because you've guilted them into it, you really haven't provided them with value. And the way to have a successful, profitable, sustainable business is for people to buy from you because they believe that by doing so, they will be better off than by not doing so. That's the only legitimate reason in a free society for people to do business with one another.
But is there not an angle in this then of, so my background is medical device sales, and I've inadvertently used this. I wouldn't have framed it as this. I wouldn't have been able to describe it as this at the time. But for example, the surgeons, I would spend loads of time helping them with the training courses. I'd bring equipment in for them so they didn't have to use all the crappy stuff that they'd pinched from theaters and all the broken scopes, endoscopes and all that kind of thing. And so they'd be really appreciative of that. But they would then buy my products, even though they're very similar to other stuff on the market, because they felt obligated that if they didn't do that, they would lose all the training stuff.
That's different. Well, no, that there's a difference then, and maybe we're using different terms. No, when you use the word obligated or guilt, to me that's a negative. But if they felt that if they didn't do business with you, they would lose that training and so forth. Well, no, that's fine. What you've done is you've provided them so much value that they chose to do business with you because they understood that you weren't just selling a product or a service, a commodity. You were also offering yourself, your skills, your talent, your knowledge, your ability to help them perform better and serve the people that they're serving. So, no, they were doing it because they appreciated the value that you provided them and they wanted that value in their life.
But would
That's
you not?
fine.
So perhaps take the word guilt out of the conversation. But would you not say that they felt obligated to work with us because of the value that we were giving? Is that maybe we're describing
I don't know
the
if
word
they
different there?
I don't know if they felt obligated to or not. If it's a guilt obligation, then no, I don't think that's ever a good reason to do something. Um, if they felt obligated in terms of, well, I don't even see, I wouldn't even use the word obligation for that. I'd say it's their choice that they realize that they are better off doing business with you than not doing business with you. Dale Carnegie, in his 1937 classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People, of all the brilliant things he said in his book, I think his underlying premise was where he wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. Okay. And so these people you were selling to bought from you for their reason. Okay. Their reason was, again, it was going to be, they were going to be better off. In their opinion, they'd be better off because you're the person who provided more value. You provided more help. You provided more. They began to know you. They liked you. They trusted you. And they understood that their reasons made sense to buy from you.
Okay, cool. Bob, is it getting more difficult to add value to prospects? And I hate this number, but it keeps coming up in these daily shows that I'm doing of, and it's almost cliched at this point, of the buyer only speaks to a salesperson at 60% through the buying process. Does that mean that it's becoming more and more difficult for salespeople to actually tangibly add value to prospects as they go through the process?
Well, I think that it, it it's a great question. I think that depending upon the situation, the value that you're adding is not necessarily the tangible value or not the tangible value of the product or service. There are two aspects of value in any product or service that you're selling. There is the intrinsic value. That is and remember, we would define value as the relative worth or desirability of something, of a thing, a product, service, concept, whatever, to the end user or beholder. So in the product or service you're selling, no matter what it is, there is an intrinsic value. It's, in other words, just by their using the product or service, there's value to it. This has been very commoditized, right? I mean, technology has leveled off the playing field. Okay, so the products you were selling, the medical devices and supplies, probably pretty much the same as your competitors. Okay, that's the intrinsic value. It's got to be great, it's got to be fantastic, but it's not enough to separate you from anyone else because everyone else pretty much has the same. And if the prospective client sees no significant difference in those products, it's always going to come down to who has the lowest price. And that's not a game you want to be playing. It's not a healthy way to do business. It's not a fun or fulfilling way to do business. Then there's extrinsic value. Extrinsic value is that value outside of the product itself. And that's what actually allows you to separate yourself in both a different and, as my friend Scott McCain of Create Distinction, great book, who says, making yourself not just different, but distinctive. Okay. So how do you add value to others? And there's probably hundreds of ways, but they tend to come down to five what we call elements of value. And they are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that we're able to add those five to any customer, client, prospect touch point, okay, from the very beginning, from when we first meet them to throughout the sales process to afterwards and through the referral that's the degree that we separate ourselves from others in a very positive way, and we take price out of the equation.
Cool. And so moving on from this, because there's loads of angles to go at here, and we'll come on to referrals at the end of the show as you mentioned them then. What do you, and hopefully this will be really empowering. I can guess where you're going to go with this, and I think this is going to be really empowering for the audience who are sales professionals. What do you think of the tech world moving towards this model where you have an SDR who's using cold emails to book appointments, so there's no value really given there. Then you have an account manager whose goal is just to close the deal, and then they get content thrown at them, and then whether they ask for a referral or not at the end kind of is not important because it doesn't really happen, and the company doesn't really feel invested into that salesperson to put themselves on the line perhaps to give a referral. How do you feel that model, because the sales industry is flocking towards that, do you feel like people are missing out, businesses are missing out on a potential opportunity here to increase the desirability of their product by having an actual a real expert, a salesperson in the mix who can add that extra value and that extra extrinsic value to their product? Are companies missing out on that by just rushing to close as many deals as possible?
Well, companies who do that will find themselves missing out. You just can't take the human touch out. You just can't. Jeff Colvin wrote a fantastic book called People Are Underrated. And in this book, and it was really a fantastic book, the premise of his book is that as technology continues to become even more and more sophisticated, which it will, as technology and computers and robots and all these different things continue to do things that humans simply can't do. It used to be, what can humans do that computers or that technology can't? Now it's not even a question. Technology can pretty much do almost everything, right? So the question isn't what can we do that computers or technology can't do? It's because they can do it. They can often do it better than we can. The question is, according to Jeff, it's what are those things that people will only accept from a human being? Because remember, we're still human, and that human-to-human connection is still so important. So as technology continues to advance, it's going to be those, what we used to call soft skills, right? It's that ability to empathize. It's to collaborate. It's to team build. It's to listen. And all these things, they'll become even more important. So, there's a certain, of course, technology is something to be used. We need to be the master and technology the servant, rather than technology the master and we the servant. Okay, and the companies who become a servant to the technology, sure, are most likely going to find that it's not going to be as profitable to them. It's not going to work out for them. So yeah, I would say that anyone you speak with in terms of selling is going to most likely agree with that, I would imagine. But there's certainly honestly, a time and place for technology.
It's 50-50 of a lot of these, because I get it. If you want to have a hyper growth company, if you can process out your sales process and make it so that it's scalable and the individual is doing these set tasks and it works, it makes total sense. But I just feel that the industry as a whole, and this is why I feel this would be empowering for everyone listening, who perhaps are being pushed into roles that are, they get less contact with the customer. They are more driven by send so many emails versus build this long-term business relationship that over the course of 5 years leads to way more deals and a bigger deal size than you would do otherwise by just cold emailing every day. And I feel like there's a kind of a turning point in sales at the moment where we could go down the marketing route of spamming for a number of years, and the marketers are kind of realizing that doesn't work now, and they're coming back onto this account-based marketing and niche marketing and single-person marketing. And I just feel the sales industry could screw up and move away from the kind of go-giver, give value up front and this human-to-human connections by just going down the technology route.
If they do and they really believe technology is the only answer, I believe they won't find that to be as productive as people who utilize technology the correct way, certainly to help scale the business, but always know that people are still going to do business when it comes right down to it it's going to be a human being who's going to have to be somewhere in the mix.
And what are to get really practical about this, what are the parts of the sales process or parts of the sales cycle or the part of just closing the deal where, to use your words, you can only accept it from a human versus some kind of artificial intelligence text bot or email or something along those lines?
Well, that will depend on the situation and itself. So I can't really be really specific with that. I would say, though, it still comes down to discovering first what that person needs, wants, and desires. Another great a friend and an author, Jeff Shore, I love what he says. Salespeople all over the world are consumed with providing the solution before they know the problem. And, yes, can a computer gather facts and information? Of course. But again, will they be able to do that as well as a human in such a way that they can really be able to go deep and get the information that a human is only going to share with a human they know, like, and trust? Now, again, I don't want to say always, never. We don't know. Okay, different businesses, they'll be different. But in general, there's still, if a relationship or a feeling of trust is somewhat needed, it's going to have to come from a human. Simon Sinek, who the author of a number of great books, I want to quote from Leaders Eat Last, and he defined trust as a biological reaction to the belief that someone has our well-being at heart. Okay? That's really what I mean, and that's what I think really goes with what Jeff Colvin said, that technology, we don't believe it has our best interest at heart because it has no heart. It's not positive or negative. Humans either have or don't have our well-being at heart. And when it comes to that aspect of doing business, that's when it's only going to be able to be accepted from a human being.
So, Bob, for anyone who's listening to this now who's thinking, I'm not adding that much value to my prospects. I'm not really that empathetic. I'm really there just to close a deal and earn, as much money as I possibly can, and then perhaps jump into a different industry in 3 or 4 years' time. And clearly that goes back to what you mentioned at the top of the show. That's not sustainable, and you don't get the huge benefits and the customer base and the security in your job almost of when you've been a salesperson in the same role for 5-6 years. You've built up a territory and you know all your customers and you've got really deep relationships. That's a great place to be in the world of sales. What should they be doing right now because they're probably listening to this show, driving in the car or at the gym. What should they do right now when we wrap up the show to improve their levels of empathy and to open their eyes as to how much value they've got to give to people?
Well, first, I'd say it's important to understand that you are going to do much better even in the short term, as well as over the next 5 years, by bringing more value to the table. If you're doing something right now in which you're able to just close a lot of sales, and move on, and that's what you want to do, that, we all have our decisions to make in life and how we choose to do so. But I'd say that you're going to, again, why is someone going to do business with you? They're more likely to do so because they feel you bring them more value, not that you just think of them as a paycheck. So I would say that even in the short term, find ways to add more value to that person. I also, as you mentioned, it's more sustainable in the long term. You make yourself more valuable by being a value-based salesperson. As far as if they don't have a sense of empathy and they understand that they don't, I congratulate them for understanding that, because unless we know something, we can't work on it, right? Unless we know something. So fortunately, empathy is something that can be improved. You can work on empathy. And all the other skills, leadership, team building, collaboration, empathy, all these different things, humility, you can work on those. There's lots of books out there. There's seminars out there. There's great information on the internet, people like you who bring on guests that talk about these things.
Are there any books you'd recommend on to improve your ability your emotional intelligence, emotional EQ, and your empathy? Is there anything that you'd personally recommend on that front?
Well, Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, was, of course, the classic in the field. There's also a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and I am so sorry, I do not remember the co-authors. It's something like Bradbury or Brett Travis Brad.
I
I
think it is
so
Travis
apologize.
Bradbury.
Travis Bradbury, I think it is. He's one of the co-authors, and that's an excellent book. And they give you instructions throughout. They give you an assessment you can take. They give you instruction on how to. So yes, I would go right for those books.
Nice. We'll link to them in the show notes over at salesman.red. And final thing, just to wrap up this part of the show, Bob, because I think this is so, tell me if you agree, I think this is one of the most underrated areas of sales that I, in the past, have failed on miserably as well. And that is, if you add enough value throughout the sales process, you build that trust, they know, like, and trust you. The whole angle on referrals becomes so simple and so useful and so scalable that I find, especially what I'm doing now, the referrals make the work up front of building relationships and adding value worth it. That's the point where everything comes back to me from that perspective. Is this something that you see salespeople screwing up on as well? Of they are happy to close the deal and then move on to the next thing, and is it a more efficient and scalable process to add value up front, hoping that you get the referrals at the other end?
Well, one of the biggest challenges with salespeople in terms of obtaining referrals is that they don't ask. And they don't ask because there's fear involved. Fear of appearing desperate, or fear of rejection, or fear of turning this person off. And if you ask for referrals correctly, you'll come across very professionally as a person who just is communicating that that's how you do business. So it's really not, and it's not a matter of just asking. We do need to be able to ask the correct way and frame it correctly. That's fine. We all, as salespeople, intuitively understand that referrals are a very, very valuable part of any business. It's easier to set appointments with referred prospects. With referred prospects, price is less of an issue. With referred prospects, it's easier to close the sale. And with referred prospects, they're already of the mindset that that's how you do business since they met you. So we need to make sure that we don't just leave that at the table because we're afraid to ask. We need to be able to get past that fear, and we do that by equipping ourselves to understand how to do the process correctly.
And why are we scared of it?
Well, because there's rejection involved, and hey, nobody likes to. I don't think anybody likes to feel rejected, be told no. They might feel that, oh, okay, so this person, it's going to make for an awkward situation if I'm asking for referrals. And again, it's just because of not knowing how to do so. Or I'm going to appear desperate or needy, and they don't want to appear desperate and needy. And I agree, you shouldn't appear desperate and needy, but if you do it correctly, you won't.
Nice. Well, Bob, I think referrals is probably a show in itself. I don't want to dive too deep into that because we'll be here for the next 4 hours going back and forth, which is fine by me, but I think everyone else will have finished their commutes by that point. So I've got a couple of questions to ask everyone that comes on the show. First one, dollar size if possible. What's the biggest deal you've ever closed?
Well, it's in the six figures. So, but I'm just trying to think. It would be from book deals that I've done.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, next one. What is one book or resource other than your own? You've mentioned a bunch already, and we'll link to everything in the show notes. But what's one book or resource other than your own that you recommend to the Salesman Podcast audience?
I would recommend a book by Harry Browne, Browne, and this book is called The Secret of Selling Anything. And it is an absolutely brilliant book. It was published after he passed away based on two brief manuscripts that his widow found on his hard drive. And it is absolutely fantastic. I wrote a review on the book, if you're interested, at Burg, burg.com/blog, and just put in the search, The Secret of Selling, or The Secret to Selling. Need not be a secret. It is absolutely the most brilliant book on selling I've ever read in my life.
Nice. That's a new one on me, so I'll check that out as well. Next one. Who is the world's greatest salesperson?
There are so many fantastic ones. I would say at least one of my favorites is a man by the name of Anthony Iannarino, Iannarino. I have his new book here somewhere too. IANNARINO. He does a blog, thesalesblog.com, and he is absolutely brilliant. And he is himself a fantastic salesperson.
Nice. We've had Anthony on the show. I think he's going to
Oh,
come
good.
back
Okay.
on with to promote his new book as well.
Oh, good. Good.
But yeah, he's great. I love his blog. Likes little snippets, not too long, easy to digest. And final one of these quick ones, Bob. What does the first 60 minutes or so of your day look like?
I kind of break a rule with this one because you hear from so many people, do not check your emails and social media in the morning, but I do. I'm up at about 5:30. I come downstairs and I actually do check my email and social media till 6:30 when my trainer comes over and she works me out for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And then after that, I shower up and then get to work and do the other things I need to do. But I do get so much email correspondence that I believe is important, and social media things going on that I want to get that out of the way soon after I wake up. But I don't do it from the phone when I wake up. I come down, I make my long commute, which is downstairs, and then I check my emails from there. So I know that kind of breaks a rule that we often hear from people.
Hey, you got to do what works. And is just because I'm intrigued now, do you do that because you value the response times versus leaving it another 4 or 5 hours? Because obviously when you overnight, or is it perhaps because, like me, I'm rubbish at doing emails. Anyone that's ever emailed me from the show, and the audience knows this, I will get back to everyone eventually, but it just takes forever. Is it because you are, focused, you're refreshed, and so you can sit down and just nail it?
I just find it a high value of mine to respond to people quickly. So that's just what I do.
Yeah, nice.
That's mainly for me. That's what it is.
Yeah, the speed. That's interesting. Okay, good stuff. Well, Bob, I've got one final question for you, and it's something I've asked everyone that comes on the show. You've already answered it once, but it was a long time ago now, so I'm going to ask you it again, and that is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give him to help him become better at selling?
The one piece of advice I would give is to go into discovering everything I can about the needs, wants, and desires of the prospect way before I begin presenting my product or service, because we know that an effective professional salesperson matches the benefits of his products or her products and services with the needs, wants, and desires. And we simply cannot do that if we haven't first discovered what those needs, wants, and desires are.
Nice. And do you think that's become easier with social media and that kind of thing versus perhaps, 10, 15 years ago?
I don't think social media, there's more information on people you can find. And of course, you can get a general overview of a certain business and do your research. But I think when it comes right down to it, it's asking that person the question.
Yep, I agree. I'm glad you said that. I think social media, social selling is totally overrated. We've talked about it so many times on the show. I'm not going to go into it again because I'll get on a rant about it. But I appreciate that, Bob, and it means a lot coming from you. And with that, Bob, tell us a little bit about the Go Giver and also tell us a little bit about the Sales Academy as well.
Yeah, we have a Go Giver Sales Academy in which we have these in Orlando, Florida, and West Palm Beach, Florida. So we have people come in. We limit these to just 12 people. So my business partner and business strategist, Kathy Tajanel, who is absolutely brilliant, she and I work very closely, very personalized, very involved with people. So we go through them, everything about their business. Plus, there's a little mastermindy element because there's other people there. And sometimes the wisdom that gets exchanged between members is just game changing. But we get to really work with them solidly for 2 days straight and help them now bring their business to a new level. So we really enjoy those. And people can find out more about that at gogiversalesacademy.com. And of course, the book, The Go Giver, is still sort of our main I don't know what you want to call resource that we have, and that, as well as the Go Giver podcast and the different things we do and other resources, can be found at thegogiver.com without the hyphen, just thegogiver.com.
Nice. And we'll link to all that and all the books that you mentioned as well, and we'll put the quotes that you've mentioned in the show notes of this episode over at salesman.red. And with that, Bob, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for going back and forth, because we were getting muddled up with the linguistics of things, and I appreciate the fact that you didn't just sit back. Some guests will just accept everything I say, which gets a bit weird. So I appreciate you went back and forth with me, mate, and I want to thank you again for your time and joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
Well, thank you. I always appreciate being with you. I just love the value you add to so many of us. Keep up the great work.
And there we have it. Bob, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I appreciate that. Thank you, as always, Sales Nation, for tuning in and sharing your attention with the show. Of course, the show would not exist if you guys didn't listen, consume, hopefully get some value out of the content, and share it with your colleagues, managers, and everyone else. Hopefully, and I think we're really becoming this. We're becoming a real one of, if not the best, free resource for salespeople. And, I get emails like that saying those exact words all the time, and it kind of keeps me going when I'm hustling and grinding out these episodes. So thank you for that, everyone who drops me an email. And with that all said, I'll speak with you all on tomorrow's show.